Hey there guys, this is TheBassSinger 313 here, and welcome back to another episode of Compare and Contrast, where we put in two separate games and see which one is superior. However, this time we're not going to be comparing two separate games from a different franchise this time, rather two separate ports of a game. You may think that the Wii version of Sonic Unleashed is just a straight up port of the Xbox 360 and PS3 versions of the game, but believe it or not, these two games actually differ significantly with one another.
While both games are developed by subsidiaries of Sonic Team, they were both split up in order to maintain a steady development. One team working on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 ports, while the other team works on the Wii and PlayStation 2 ports. The newly enhanced Hedgehog Engine was created, and Sonic Team wanted to showcase their new game engine. However, the Wii and PS2 versions were not compatible, so they had to be worked on different older engines. Long story short, the fact that these two ports were made in different engines also mean they inherently also affect gameplay as well, hence why Sonic fans like to think of these two as different games, despite sharing the same story.
I've debated on whether or not to cover the story for this game, since really they're both nearly identical with the exception of the Wii version cutting some cutscenes. However, at the same time, I kind of want to cover them. Just give my feedback and my opinion on it.
So instead, I'll be putting up a spoiler warning, and if you guys want to skip my overall thoughts on the story, go to this timestamp. Otherwise, if you guys are interested in what Sonic Unleashed has to offer in terms of an adventure, let's dive right in. Our story begins with Sonic beating Eggman. Well, you think that will be the end of the story, but no, it turns out Eggman has an ace up his sleeve and traps our blue blur and drains all the life out of him and the Chaos Emeralds, turning him into a werewolf-like creature dubbed the Werehog. Flying into the vacuum of space and crashing down to Earth, surprisingly, he lives from the fall and is acquainted by a purple furry creature who's lost his memories. While scared at first with Sonic's appearance, he starts to warm up to him. Sonic eventually turns back to normal after nighttime has passed, as our heroes seem to link his new Werehog form to the day and night cycle. Despite the knowledge we encountered, our number one priority is to regain the purple creature's memory, who Sonic decides to nickname Chip after his obsession to downright orgasmic levels and love towards the sundae vendor who sells chocolate chip sundae. God, this is uncomfortable. And so we ask around town to see if there's anyone who knows Chip. And no dice. It seems the town folks are more worried about the massive earthquake that seems to split the world in 7 parts. Also, Tails show up and it seems like he's in trouble. We save him and he tells us about the link between the world splitting apart and Sonic's new Werehog form are somehow related. He happens to know a professor named Professor Pickles who can help us fix our dilemma, and it's off to Spangonia, the Sonic Universe version of Spain. Using Tails' Tornado 1 airplane, we head off for the country, and it turns out he's been kidnapped. One of his students tells us that Professor Pickles has been kidnapped by Eggman. This knowledge seems to spark so much of a shockwave that Chip dies. Wait, what?
Let's go and find the professor.
Oh, it's for visual gag.
My mistake. There's just no way Sega would ever kill off a character in the Sonic series.
With more investigation, we found out that the professor is being held hostage in Eggman's chamber somewhere in Missouri, and with the press of a button... Wait, how does he know that that was gonna free him? Whatever, I guess Tails is just tech geek that he recognized buttons. We rescue him and he tells us that what's happening to the planet at the current moment is the awakening of Dark Gaia, a similar event that happened 10,000 years ago. Dark Gaia managed to split the world into separate pieces thanks to his center core area. After our brief backstory, Dr. Eggman is attacking Missouri once again, forcing the citizens to tell him the Temple of Gaia. I assume this is Dr. Eggman's way of saying that he wants to awaken Dark Gaia from its slumber to take over the world? Anyway, Sonic attacks his robot henchman and Eggman flees. Following him, we destroy the egg beetle and goes into the Temple of Gaia, which we happen to stumble across. Inside, he restores the life back to one of the Chaos Emeralds and furthermore, restores part of the planet. You got all that? Good. Rinse and repeat for the next 7 dungeons. There are some occasional banter in the middle of the story, like meeting Amy and having her mistaken Sonic for... Sonic. Or some interaction with some of the townsfolk and their culture, but otherwise they're relatively there for filler, as it doesn't really affect much to the story, other than I guess motivation to stop Eggman, which I'm already naturally inclined to do so anyways. After all that adventuring, Chip finally regains back his memory once we unlock the last Gaia temple. It turns out Chip is actually Light Gaia, and it was his duty to protect the Earth from Dark Gaia, but Eggman, the conniving menace he is, decides to free them both, leading to the rebirth more earlier than should, which explains why the world is split apart and why our heroes need to fix it. It's basically a rebirth conundrum that the world resets and everything goes back to normal after the mass destruction. It is also explained why Sonic's Werehog form was not affected by the chaotic nature of Dark Gaia, as it's due to Sonic's good nature that he was able to withstand his demons and use his powers for good. And it's thanks to him that Chip manages to find the motivation further to help the world and save it, after experiencing their food and traditions. With one last pep talk, it is time to take on Eggman. Holy f***, that was painful! How the hell did this level take 44 minutes? It's not even accounting the many deaths I had to endure!
Calm down. Calm down. There's gonna be a lot of room to rant later on in this video. Just calm down for now. Calm down.
Anyway, we found Eggman, he summons Dark Gaia, and the world is shredded into purple miasma as Dark Gaia regains his true power. With no other choice, Sonic transforms into Super Sonic, thanks to the power of the 7 Chaos Emeralds that we restore life to. And with the help of Chip, who is turned into Gaia Colossus, aka Stone Megazord, not its actual name, but come on, giant robots. That's freaking sweet. We blast Perfect Dark Gaia into bits, saving the world, as Chip restores himself back to his light Gaia form, resetting the world, and ending our hero's adventure with a fleeting memory of Chip and his achievements. And will never ever appear in another Sonic game again. Alright, so overall story, it's interesting, but kind of falls a bit flat. As the heroes of the story, they do their job properly, albeit more of the repetitive side. They're heroes after all, so obviously they have to save the world. What I found very perplexing, on the other hand, is Dr. Eggman's motivation in this. Why does he want to destroy the world? Didn't he try to save it back in Sonic Adventure 2? If this is just to kill Sonic, then why go through all the effort of wasting humanity as well? Hell, he could have done it right there at the very beginning. If he thinks Sonic is such a nuisance in the plan, he could just grab him and snap his neck right there. See? No need to turn him into a werehog and go after all this convoluted shenanigans. I thought at first, since the very beginning of Sonic's incarnation, Eggman just wanted to rule the world inhabited with robots. It's an odd motivation in itself, but it's usually the motif that Eggman's been going for since the beginning of the first Sonic the Hedgehog game. Why go through all the effort in the end when there's no world to rule over? Maybe he can harness the power of Dark Gaia and go after the galaxy? I guess. A good hero cannot work properly without a good defined villain, and Eggman is a very badly written villain. He can be funny at times, so I think if the story was a little more on the goofier side rather than the serious death and reincarnation of the world, then Eggman's character would have worked, but instead I feel as though his character motivations do not formulate properly with the plot. I can appreciate Sonic's team for trying to do something more creative. It's a little difficult to try and make the same plot line to beat the bad guy and save the woodland critters interesting and not make it repetitive, but I think this falls really short overall. One last thing I guess I can note is the minor differences between the two versions. There is this one section I remember vividly where during Professor Pickle's kidnapping, on the PS3 version we went to a day and nighttime stage in Missouri. However, on the Wii version, it's just one cutscene and then straight to the next cutscene. Only our obstacle was just to move from country to country, and that's about it. For some reason, the Wii version flat out removes some aspects of the PS3 version's cutscenes, and it makes moments like these feel completely jarring. I don't think it's a limitation of the Wii, as when we get to the presentation section, the Wii version looks just as good as the PS3 version. My only guess is that the development team didn't have enough time to add more stages for the Wii version, and it'll be more apparent when we get to the gameplay section. Speaking of which... both games play nearly identical to each other in terms of gameplay styles. The difference between the two versions are in terms of the game engine and mechanics, but overall the objective is pretty much the same for both games, with the exception of the Wii exclusive missions, where you go from various different missions such as collecting enough rings or avoiding certain obstacles along the path. The number of differences, however, are more exemplified with individual stages. When compared to the exact requirements and stage layout, this is when the PS3 and Wii versions differ immensely. Let's start with the PS3 version first. Most of these levels have you go from point A to point B for both daytime and nighttime stages. There may be some obstacles such as enemies, stage hazards, and puzzles, or specifically the lack thereof. All it really takes is just to put one object to a specific platform. But overall, the objective of the level is designed for you to go from point A to point B to at least finish the level, or at least that's one of the requirements in order to progress through the game. The other requirement is for you to collect sun and moon medals present within each stage, and the amount of them contained in each level varies. I'd say for the nighttime stages, it's perfectly fine as the fun with those werehog stages tends to be exploration, but the goal for pretty much all of these daytime stages is to get to the end as fast as possible. It would have been nice if these medals appeared during the speedrun sections, which for the most part, it is. Hell, when I go to a hidden path, I'm also rewarded with these medals and it feels so satisfying. However, nothing is more annoying when you finally progress to the next stage, only to be met with needing to collect more sun and moon medals. It doesn't help that the nighttime stages are absolutely long as hell, and on average, the amount of medals are more present within these stages. Look, I'm just gonna come out and say it, I really dislike these nighttime stages. stages. I get what their intention was when designing the concept of the Werehog stages, and I will admit, it's not the worst thing I've ever experienced in a Sonic game, but the combat is practically bare bones. There's no variation towards the enemies, and all they serve is for us to punch and grab them. Platforming is not any better. For some reason, Sonic has a piss poor jump. This further exemplifies with a double jump as well. The best way for me to make it to other platforms is if I sprint and then double jump. That way I get the most distance. But dashing in itself is also very awkward and finicky. Sonic feels like he's on ice every single time. Also not helping is when there's actual ice physics. Ironically enough though, these are actually the best nighttime stages, since I think the level is designed spacious enough for combat. It still has its share of problems like these icicles where you have to grab them in order to get to the next set of platforms, but overall I think these levels are somewhat designed well for the Werehog stages. But every single other level, I had no pleasure going through any of them. They control badly, they slow the pace of the game, and they're absolutely long as hell, spanning from around 20 to 30 minutes in total gameplay, not counting deaths. On the other side of the spectrum, these daytime stages are absolutely fun. They give Sonic a thrill of what it's like to go as fast as possible, and the main levels are a blast to go through. Well, assuming you can get a steady frame rate. This game loves to chug a lot. I'm starting to feel some sort of smoke coming out of my PlayStation 3. This is one huge downside to the daytime stages, and to be fair, I think it might be because I'm playing on the PlayStation 3. I've heard that the Xbox 360 version of the game ran a lot more smoothly, so if you really want to experience the best quality of the daytime stages, play Sonic Generations on PC and get the Unleashed mods. Ah yes, now this is how you play Sonic Unleashed properly. Okay, joking aside. If your computer can't handle it, get the Xbox 360 version. Or on the other hand, there's also the Wii version. For some reason, the Wii version excluded some levels and completely removed one country from the game, but to make it up, they added more daytime and nighttime stages for each country. As mentioned before, the Wii version adds more mission-based stages, which do repeat some of the same layout, but overall they are shorter than the PS3 versions, and thank God they are! I will gladly take these nighttime stages way more than PS3 versions. They're pretty linear and the controls are not actually bad. I'm using Classic Controller Pro for this, so I'm not exactly sure how the motion controls work, but I don't care. I don't think it really matters as the platforming is much more easier to grasp upon and the stage varies from 3 to 8 minutes rather than 20 to 30 minutes, a huge contrast to the PS3 version. As for the daytime stages, I honestly can't tell if they're any more or less interesting than the PS3 version. The boost mechanic, I'm not too much of a fan of. They're more of a toggle boost than a hold. See, with the PS3 version, there's a gauge, so it's all depending on how long you boost. Whereas with the Wii version, you press a button and then you boost for a short amount of time, but don't maintain that for too long. It's more of a short burst than a constant boost, and personally, I don't find that as enjoyable. What I do find more enjoyable is the frame rate. No dipping below 30 frames per second here, ladies and gentlemen. This game runs very smooth and my buttons register perfectly fine, unlike the PS3 version where the frame rate dips below 15 and doesn't even register my button inputs. I didn't really mention the boss battles too much, but overall they're not too different. They are pretty one-to-one with each other, however I would like to add that the Wii version of this boss battle specifically, I have no problems with, where with the PS3 version, it glitched where the enemies are not taking damage. The PS3 version also has these tail stages, which are nothing more than quick time events, and last and foremost, the PS3 also has the worst stage imaginable. I hated Eggman stage on PS3. It's a combination of long and tedious tasks with broken controls and platforming, and if you lose all of your lives, you go all the way back to the beginning of the stage. This took me 50 minutes to beat when I finally finished it, and I never ever want to return to it ever again. How I managed to get a B rank is perplexing to say the least. Now compare this to the Wii version where it splits up into different levels, and when you lose all your lives, you're only repeating the last level you were in. I will take these levels to the teeth, and because of that, I find the Wii version to be absolutely more superior than the PS3 version. This may seem like a no-brainer. Of course the PS3 is going to look better. It's in HD and the Wii version only outputs in 480p. However, strangely enough, not only is the gameplay dropping frame rates, but also the cutscenes. Not all of them do that. When they play in a non-intensive area, the game runs smoothly, but the Wii version, on the other hand, plays at a constant 30 frames per second with no frame rate drops, and it surprisingly looks near identical to the PS3 version. I can't help but wonder why that's the case. Is the Wii hardware more easier to implement? That might be a possibility. This doesn't just extend to the cutscenes, however, as the PS3 is plagued with frame rate issues in both the daytime and nighttime stages. Even when you're literally doing nothing but running, it stutters immensely. With the daytime stages, it's understandable, you're going supersonic speed, and I'll give credit when credit's due. The feeling of high-speed action is exhilarating and ecstatic. Not to sound like an IGN review, but for real, it legit makes you feel like Sonic. But I don't understand why the nighttime stages suffer from the same fate when rendering even less polygons in environment. Compare this to both the Wii's nighttime and daytime stages, it plays perfectly fine. I've not experienced any frame rate stutters, and while I do think the Wii version is not as fast as the PS3 version, it still gives the same high-speed action that any Sonic fan would enjoy. So strangely enough, despite being graphically inferior, the Wii version still impresses me more as they managed to look as good with some few sacrifices, and runs more smoothly than the PS3 version.
Overall, there are some pros and cons for both versions. The PS3 version is not exactly the most stable port, and the Wii version may not look as good. But overall, I do think I enjoyed the Wii version a little bit more. Not to say that the PS3 version is completely garbage or anything, I do very much enjoy the daytime stages in there. But the nighttime stages are the one deciding factor that really hinders my knowledge to really enjoy this game, so I really have to just say that the Wii version won this time. If you're going to play the PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360 ports of this game, I'd say just play the daytime stages. Really, the nighttime stages are not too much fun for me personally, so I wouldn't recommend them at all. And if I want to replay through Sonic Unleashed for the PlayStation 3 ever again, I would just go back to my old save file and play through the daytime stages. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed the Compare and Contrast videos, make sure to subscribe. I will be uploading a Compare and Contrast video every Wednesday, and yeah, that's pretty much it. If you guys liked the video, make sure to give a like down below, and any comments, feedbacks, and critique will once again be openly appreciated. I would look at your feedback and see how I can improve my content. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. This is TheBassSinger, signing out.